Hey everybody, so we're out here doing another church for the first time in a while. We're going to do the Revolutionary War part of the cemetery, and then we'll probably go down and do the War Memorial as well. We are here right near Pine Grove. I believe this is Moyers, Pennsylvania. This is Salem-Hetzels Church. There was a Mr. Hetzel who was a school teacher at the time. They started a church at 1780. In the schoolhouse for the first 3 years, Mr. Hetzels would read sermons, and then in 1783 they would build the first church, I believe. Log structure, of course. William Kirks was the pastor of not only here, and that was a tractor that just went by, but also Jacob's Lutheran. So this was a Union church, and then I believe in 1797 they built, and maybe that's the first church. It was a log structure. Maybe they were in a schoolhouse that whole time. It's sort of hard to know with these country churches sometimes. But in 1880 they built the current structure. On Finder Grave it says they built a stone structure, but this is clearly not stone, this is brick. But the cornerstone there on the side says 1880. And that's the history of the church. I'm not sure if it's still a Union church. It looks like on Facebook and stuff like that the UCC is who pastors its church now. But we're going to go around the cemetery because they have, I would assume, Revolutionary War vets here. There's also a war memorial down the other side. Maybe check out other couple different monuments. But let's turn this around. Let's go over. So here you can see the church. This is the church that was built in 1880. The cornerstone's on the right there. I have a short for Hometown Historic Church that shows that they also have a plaque for the 200th anniversary, 1783 to 1983. And there's a capsule as well that they're going to open up on 2082. But anyways, let's check this out. This is a cemetery usually is the same age roughly. Usually when you have these open sections, there's people buried there, but that also could be where the original church structure had been, the wooden structure. I don't know. It's hard to find a lot of information. Beanoggles Church that we visited, also Hill Lutheran Church, churches that had a primary family. Just look at the work on this stone. This is really quite neat. But they, in Hill Lutheran's case, the Heilman family was the primary family, and Beanoggles was the early family. So usually their history as a family was very connected to the church, and therefore they would keep the history of the church rather well. So a lot of cases that is not the case. So you sort of get what you get with the history of these churches. Sometimes you can find stuff. I was not able to find a whole lot beyond that little bit of information. Once again, we'll take a gander at it from a distance so you can see the church in sort of its entirety. So the front section there, the sanctuary, that would be the original, and I'm sure other stuff got added on as needed with most churches. That's how they did it. These rural communities, they were very simple. You are seeing a couple of these red stone, so those would probably be the oldest of the stones that are in this cemetery, like this one here. I love the heart there. Let's see what this is. Sometimes these are War of 1812. That's Grand Army of the Republic. That's Civil War. I'm not sure if that would be correct. That is definitely not correct. They should be a Revolutionary War marker here because they died in 1794. So sometimes you see that in these cemeteries. They just sort of put whatever marker they can find and they put it on the flag there, and or holds the flag. And they aren't always correct. We've been at a couple cemeteries. I think Gunkel's out in Pine Grove, they had quite a few that were not correct either. There's another one with one of those hearts. They're really just pretty cemeteries, and you know, those would be. And here you see too, like everything's facing this way, like the lettering and stuff like that, which is why I couldn't read any of them. So it's unique. These older stones are facing out towards the road, whereas everything else is facing away from the road. I'm sure there's a reason for that. What that is, I have no idea. Because you'll see that every now and then, where like they sort of, some are facing one way, some are facing others. But it's just I always think the cemetery stones are so pretty with, and then when these are clean, you get rid of that blackish grayish, and you can see some of the veining in the marble. Some really pretty veining on some of these stones here. So very well, the church, the original long structure, might have been right in that area there, but who knows. These are pretty ornate. So this person looks like 1751, died in 1820. And a lot of these, like I said before, they're in German. Sort of looking for, I think there's a couple markers over here. I like this one unique one over here I want to check out. It's just so different. Like a little obelisk. Margareta Lengel, February 1744, 1804. So this is clearly replaced at some point. Magdalena Lengel. Those are some names: Margareta and Magdalena Lengel. Paul Lengel. Yeah, this is replaced. This is pretty cool. Pretty neat stone. And then a John Lengel, 1739 to 1806. So I wonder if these are most likely the wives and husbands, and the stone just deteriorated over time. It's quite neat. So quite interesting stone there. And you have a bunch more over here. Let's see what's all here. And like I said, we will go down to the war memorial. Oh, some of these unique markings. You always wonder whether they, like that looks like that's a weeping willow, which I believe long life, also mourning and things like that, but that might be tree of life there. I'm not quite sure because I can't tell exactly what that is. And then here's a bunch of them that have fallen. And are laying here on the ground. And then you get over into like the newer section. It's just really neat like that. Just these are all marble. And then you see like a rose on either of those. Loys. There's a unique name. Equilla B. Loy. I always say this when we do these cemeteries, that every single one of these people had a story. And people that loved them, and you know, you could fill books with everything that had to do with their lives. And there's a really neat, it's a willow, almost looks like it's next to a spring or something, but really is so much history here. And I see a number of these stars here, which normally are, sometimes they're War of 1812, but these are Grand Army of the Republic. I think unfortunately these are just a situation where they used what they could find with those for veterans, And most of these people, these veterans, I would think, are Revolutionary War. Because there's another one, it's Grand Army of the Republic. Now this one very well could be Grand Army of the Republic, because just the way the stone's laid out, that actually, and even that one, thinking back at it, there probably are Civil War, but that other one, the death date was 1794, is clearly a veteran of I wouldn't be surprised too if there's more. I'd have to look at the cemetery records, that there's more people that are actually veterans of the Revolution, because it's a decent sized cemetery. I'm surprised there aren't more veterans markers over there. Once again, it depends on the cemetery, who's taking care of it, and which veterans group is taking care of it, and that type of stuff makes a difference. But that one almost looks like it's a lamb laying down, so that I'm assuming it was a child. Those are always so sad and very symbolic, sort of the stone falling away from it. It would have broken the lives of the loved ones. It's a sad tale of life, especially in those frontier days. It was rough. They did the best they could, but you were faced with a tremendous amount of adversity, and medicine wasn't what it is today, and that type of stuff, and it just is what it is. But I'm gonna take a picture of this, and I think I'm gonna quick go over. There's a monument over there with a bunch of writing on it, and then we'll go down to the war memorial, and that'll probably be it for my leg for a day. But yeah. Mary J. Hummel. There's another Magdalena. I just want to see, because sometimes these stones, when they have a little more writing on it, like maybe it's just people's names and stuff like that, but sometimes there's a story to it. I mean, every single one of these does certainly have a story, but sometimes there's a story on stone that gives you a little bit more of an input into who they were. It's like we did the story of the one guy, the Jeffries, told of his sacrifice. So here's a guy's name, Washington Schrupp. He was born 17th of February 1838. I don't know if that's... I think it's 1923. He was 84 years old. And then Magdalene, his wife, she was born 1846 and died 1901. That liching on there is sort of hard to distinguish sometimes what those dates are. A lot of Loys in this cemetery. Schnecks. These were early families, pioneers in these regions, and this was at one time was the frontier. In a lot of ways, this was the frontier because they were on the other side of the Blue Mountain, which at that time was a very dangerous proposition. There's a Daniel Schneck. Some more Loys. I always love these bronze military markers. This guy was a World War I vet, George A. Tobias. Really a neat property here. Another bronze marker like my Uncle Ernest. Donald E. Miller Sr. He was a Tech 4. I believe my uncle was a Tech 5 in the U.S. Army, and that was World War II. So this is the military memorial here at the cemetery. It's very neat. In memory of all who served that are resting here and abroad. United States Army, United States Air Force, United States Marine Corps, the United States Navy, and the United States Coast Guard, and PAL, prisoners of war, missing in action, and you are not forgotten. So, it's another one of those places. I'd like to take more time with you, but I do have to limit myself just with what I can all do. But this is just another one of these places that the serenity, I think, is these cemeteries that comes with them, and it's just appropriate last resting place for so many of those that have come before us, and it's well worth recognizing them, talking a little bit about them, stopping at a couple of the different stones. If I had more energy and my legs could handle it, I would certainly spend far more time. But I believe there's, I think it's 2,100 memorials here. So this is, it's a decent sized cemetery. Just another one of these unique places that our forebears, their stories are buried here. Sometimes the only thing that to remind us that they existed is a name on a stone. And like the one lady said, and it's Lady Tajos, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but she had said these are more than just a stone. You know, if you think if every single one of these stones were able to talk to us and tell us the story of these individuals, what stories they could tell. So as always, I'm going to say thank you for coming along. I am going to be done for the day. I don't handle this, even though it's actually pretty nice. There's a breeze going and everything. I just don't handle it well. Diabetes and all that, but so I don't want to hurt myself, and I've got to do some work tonight. So as always, I want to say thanks for coming along, and we'll see you all about town.